Hello lovely people of YouTube, I am Kielan the Realist Reviewer and welcome to my tutorial for Banished. Now then, some of you guys have been having a few problems with this game, or so I've been reading on Reddit and other places, and I just thought I'd take a little bit of time to give you a quick tutorial. This is a very quick tutorial for you guys just starting out in the game. Maybe you're having problems, especially food problems perhaps. This tutorial's for you, for those of you guys who are quite into this game. You might find it amusing, I don't know. But anyway, I'm not claiming to be an expert or anything. I just thought I'd let you know a few tips that I've learnt. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, as you may see here, I've got a fairly advanced town right here. It's certainly not a new town. And I'm just going to cover some of the basics now for you. Okay, the first thing you're going to have to worry about, of course, is the food supply. Don't worry about building anything else until you've got your food supply sorted. Is the main concern when you start the game, is your food supply, and then you go on to your wood supply and your stone supply. So let's get into the food straight away. First of all, you want to build a gatherer, and gatherers are these wee huts here. Now you need to build at least one gatherer to begin with, and you want to place them. At first I had my gatherer around here, and you want to make sure that they're completely surrounded by forest area. This is important because you want to make sure that all these lovely little resources here are able to be gathered. Okay. And these resources generally only grow in wooded areas. At least they grow quite substantially in wooded areas only. They do sometimes grow outside of that, but it's not really viable. And that's what you want to worry about, viability. So basically you want to make sure you get a nice wooded area for that. And once you've got the food coming in from that, and you will get a lot of food coming in from that, if you put it in the right place. If you haven't put it in the right place, maybe you've got like some kind of terrain limitations and stuff, you might not get as much food as I did. I got a lot of food to begin with. My storage barn soon started filling up. Yours should too. If it's not, chances are you've either put it in the wrong place or your terrain's not great for gathering. Now another thing you can do, guys, is you can build a fishing dock. Now, a fishing dock's not too great early on. It's a bit slow, unless it's right next to your storage barn, in which case if you can build one right next door, then it's viable, then it's pretty good. If you want to, like, building a gathering is easy. Building a fish, this fishing dock is a little bit harder, but it's not that difficult. You basically need to make sure that everything's green, essentially. It's not hard. Now you're going to be using your R and T keys. R and T, this turns it around. This is very important. R and T. So using the R and T buttons, you can turn it around. You can place it wherever you like. I placed it here because it fitted. I think it fitted here as well, just about. But it is quite difficult to place it, so make sure it's fully green. And once it's fully green, making sure you've got the dock in the water. You see that's fully green there, and you can place your fishing dock. Now, as I said, fishing is only good if it's close to your settlement early on. Later on, it's not so much bother. It's not terribly productive. It's pretty reasonable once you get like enough guys fishing in there. It's pretty good. But mainly you're going to be worrying about your gathering. Probably after your gathering, you should set up probably a hunter's lodge. Hunting cabin, sorry. Now, hunting cabin and gathering go hand in hand pretty much. It's all kind of stuff that goes on in the woods. You do get deer outside of woods. I mean, you'll see them around on like patches. I even saw some over here. But generally, the most population of deer that you're going to want are going to be in the forestry area. So you're going to put the hunting cabin within a forest area, along with your gatherer's hut. Okay. Now, after that, you're going to be kind of wondering about where I'm going to get resources from and stuff like that, like wood and stone. Now to get your wood and stone, you just go over to resource production, basically, and all that kind of good stuff. And removal and destruction tool. Now, this is a bit misleading. It says removal and destruction tools, but it's also a harvesting tool, because you can actually tell your citizens to harvest trees. And you basically click on that, highlight an area, like drag it across an area, and look, you can tell them how many trees to get right away. If you're short on wood, that's the best way to do it. But make sure you don't remove wood around your gatherers and stuff like that. That will not be good if you cut down the kind of wooded area that your hunters rely on for food, or your gatherers rely on for food. So try and make sure it's like, I had a bit of forest over here that I removed, or any forest where you're planning on building your village up. Just remove that first. Now another thing you can do, of course, is collect stone. Stone is basically this stuff here, and try and collect stone as near to your village as possible, or as near to your storage area as possible. This is kind of starting area, storage area you'll start with. And that's how you get your stone and your wood when you start, basically, and that's what you need to keep doing. But be very careful not to remove it around these important areas where you're resource gathering. This is kind of the first satellite area I set up. It has a forester. Now a forester is something you build later on. Once your food supply is good, then you can worry about getting a steady wood supply. And a forester is excellent for that, providing it's in the right area. Again, it must be within a wooded area. Preferably all the area within the circle should be woodland. I made the mistake of not doing so, and I had a bit of land that didn't have forest on. Now, if it's not all wooded, then your guys will plant trees. Although you can turn that off. Just click in there, you can turn it off. So you can actually have them just cutting trees for the beginning. But bear in mind, they will have to replant it later. So I kind of find it best to have all the circle wooded area already. That way you don't have to worry. And with 2 or 3 foresters, you should have as much wood as you need within no time. And as you can see, I've got a hell of a lot of wood right now, and a lot of firewood and all that good stuff. Anyway, moving on. Once you're okay for food, you've got a gatherer going. You maybe got a fishing dock going. Then you want to think about livestock. Now, if you're playing on easy or medium and stuff, you may have cows, you may have chickens knocking around here. If you've got chickens, you're in luck, because chickens are quite good, but they're a little bit slow. That's why you want to make sure you got your gatherer working full tilt, that you got your fisherman working full tilt, and that you got your hunter and gatherers. You know, the first humans were hunter-gatherers. Big clue there. That's how you start off. Hunters and gatherers within wooded areas. You should be fine for food. If you're not, then you need to build a few more of those. Once you're alright for food, and by alright for food I mean you've got hundreds coming in your storage, then you can think about longer term solutions like fields and ranches and stuff. Now this is a pasture, of course they're not ranches, they're pastures in this game. This is a pasture. I built it quite big, but you guys can start out small. If it's about half this size, you can drag it out and make how big it is. When you're making a pasture, it's basically under food supply and pasture. It's got a picture of a cow on it, but it can be chickens, it depends what you have. Usually around your village area you will see an animal walking around. That's what you're going to get. Usually it's chickens. So to build a pasture, you just drag it out as big as you want. I would start out small to begin with, although I had so much food I could just build a huge one, so that's what I did. And I also had plenty of people as well. We'll go into population in a moment. I just want to get you guys squared away with food and resources first of all. So once you've got your chicken run or whatever it is, you'll find that the animals will move into that area and someone will come along and do the job. So once you've done that, you'll see the population. It goes up fairly slowly and you will only get a few eggs to begin with, but that will build up over time. That's something that is more sustainable for you guys. Once you're done with that, you can sort of look at your first field. This is quite a small field. You want to make sure, like, well, your first field should be about that big, kind of what would I say, about 15 by 8 or something quite small that only one person has to work, because you don't have many people when you just start out. So be careful of that, guys. Don't build a huge field like this. This is the biggest field you can build in the game, and you do not want to build this early in the game. It will kill you. Your people will starve to death, trust me. I made that mistake when we started. It's kind of like unfortunate that they give you seeds and stuff, and you think, oh, I'm going to start farming right off the bat. Do not farm right off the bat. Hunt together first. Make sure you got plenty of food in your storage barns, and then think about long-term crops and pastures after that. And make sure they're small to begin with, and then build a huge one when you've got plenty of food and you're confident. But the main thing, the main importance is to make sure your people have got enough food, you got enough wood coming in, and stone isn't such a problem to begin with. You can just, as I said, go up to the removal and destruction tool and just tell them to collect more stone when you run out. Make sure to go with wooden houses only, although I'm going into that in a moment. That's pretty much it for the beginning resources for food and stuff. After a while, you will find your citizens having to go quite a long way to get any resources for like stone and stuff. So then you should think about building a quarry. This is only really viable when you got a lot of people, like at least 40 people in town, I would say. So don't really think about a quarry until either you've run out of stone so much, but you shouldn't really run out of stone, because you should be building wooden houses to start with. So you shouldn't really, stone houses require a lot of stone. 40 stone per house, that's a lot, and stone is kind of hard to come by. And then of course you can build a mine. This is all under, it's under resource production, of course. There's your quarry. Build your quarry. You can build it pretty much anywhere, but I would build it somewhere away from your main things, like your farm, your resource gatherers. Don't put it in the middle of your forest, basically. Don't put it in the middle of your town. Have it somewhere fairly close, but somewhere that it won't interrupt your food supply, basically. And the same goes for your mine. But don't build those until you have at least about 40 people, 45 people at least, and then only devote a couple of miners to it. I suppose it's a good time to get into how to manage your population. Population management's fairly simple. It's in tools and reports, believe it or not. And it's under assign jobs to citizens. This is very important. The reason why this is very important is because otherwise your people will sit at laborers. Now, laborers perform easy tasks such as clearing areas and moving produced goods to storage. You don't really need these as much. I usually have none, and things seem to happen just fine. But, sometimes it's good to have at least one laborer to do the easy tasks. Now then, basically when you first start off, you want to have at least 1 or 2 builders, at least while you're building. When you stop building, you should really reduce the number and put them to do other things, because early on you're not going to be building very much, are you? You're not going to be building a huge amount, but as long as there's stuff to be built, keep about 2 builders at least. Get it up to 4 if you have spare people, by all means. Of course, with pastures or with farms, to get the most benefit out of them, you really need to max the workers on it. And here it tells you how many workers is the maximum. For example, because I've got 2 fields, it requires 6 workers to fill the entire field. As you can see, I don't have it maxed out right now, but that's not really a problem. I'm making enough food. I don't need to worry about that. Make sure that when you got your gatherers, that you have that maxed out when you start out. Make sure that your huntsmen are maxed out at all times to make sure you get enough food. Food is number 1 priority. Then comes your resources such as wood and stuff, wood and stone basically, and then you can worry about builders and all that kind of stuff after that. So make sure you always have your food covered, that you have plenty of people, you know, involved with the food supply. If you're like got tons of food like me, then you can start cutting back. Like I don't have gatherers maxed out. I don't have my hunters maxed out because my field has taken over the food supply. So once you've got enough food, by all means build a field, get a crop field going, because they do produce a lot of food. Certainly it will make certain gathering almost redundant, but anyway, later on you can think about things like herbalists. Herbalists are good for getting herbs to heal your people and make them more healthy. A healthier person is a more productive person, as is a happier person, but you can worry about happiness later on. Happiness is not very important in this game, actually. I've found, at least I've been thriving without having to worry about you know, alcohol and stuff, which is supposed to make them extra happy. Just giving them food, it makes them happy enough to do a good job. Later on in the game you can build a schoolhouse, which only requires one teacher, which is a pretty good deal, pretty efficient. Before that, actually, you're going to need a woodcutter. Now, woodcutter supplies firewood, which is essential to get you people through the day, basically, through the winter especially. So actually, quite early on in the game, you want to think about a woodcutter. As soon as your supplies are dwindling, and you realize that your firewood is going down to about 50 or 100, get a woodcutter in there, and at least have them working until you have about 200 wood. You're going to need at least 200 wood to get you through the first few winters, so make sure that's pretty much maxed out at all times. In fact, you know, pretty much throughout this game, try and make sure you, like, of course when you start up that's not going to be possible, but as soon as possible, get a woodcutter in there and get them chopping away at some of this lumber that you've gathered using the tool here, the harvestries tool. As I said, later on you want to get a forester in, a forester's lodge, to cover the same area as your gatherers and your hunting lodge. All should be the same area, because your forester's going to plant and cut trees, maintaining a healthy forest. Your hunter's going to hunt that forest, and your gatherer's going to be able to pick the mushrooms and all that good stuff in the forest. So, you know, those three work very well together, so always put those three together. Once you've got about 2 foresters going, you should be absolutely stuffed for wood. 1 forester is pretty good for wood, but you're probably going to still need to gather some every now and again to replenish your supply. The good news is, though, when you gather stone and wood, pretty much everyone goes to gather it seems. So you're not going to be short if you go for that option. However, a caveat with that is to say, if you select to gather too much wood or too much stone early in the game, that can be a death sentence, because your people are doing that and they're not making food or gathering food, and that can be big trouble early on. So let's just go through some of the other cool things you can do. Now, you may notice that the game's rather slow. When you start out, you can be like, damn, this game's slow. What, you know, is this game, you know, this game's going to take me hours to play. I'm a busy guy. Well, you're in luck. There's a clock right here, simulation speed. And here you can set it right up to 10 times speed. So you don't need to worry about that too much. So that's how you speed up the game, basically, and get everyone to do things faster. I personally like to run about 5 times speed. When you start out, probably about 2 times speed to 5 times speed. If you go 10 times speed, chances are you're going to run out of food, some disaster happens, and you're pretty much in trouble. And that's pretty much it for the starting out phase. Everything else is more kind of advanced stuff. We'll just go through some of the other stuff. This is tools and reports. You're going to want to have this up at all times. You can just put it in the corner. That's what I do. And it's great because you can see how many children you got coming in, how much new population. how many people are in school and how much adults you have. You can see how much of every kind of major resource that you have, which is awesome. How much food do I have? How much firewood do I have? That kind of thing. Really important stuff. You can see here, you can see how happy people are. You can see how healthy they are. You can see what temperature it is. You can see how much stored clothing you have. I don't have any right now. Clothing doesn't matter so much for some reason. But you will need to make a tailor later on. And he makes coats out of leather, which your gatherers get and your hunters get for you. So do make some more coats later on. But it doesn't matter that much, at least at this stage of the game. It hasn't made a big deal for me, so don't worry about that too much. I built a boarding house. People tell you to build a boarding house early on. I found it completely useless because people don't move into the boarding house unless they have to. You know, they will stack up in a house, in a normal house, like to the brim before they will go to a boarding house. My boarding house has been completely empty even when I haven't built any houses. But they do say watch out for population explosion early on, because when you build a house, your people will produce more children, and you may end up with a lot of people early on and you don't have the food to support them. But the trick is with that is don't build so many houses early on. You don't need that many houses. Build them out of wood, okay? Because firewood ain't going to be that big of a deal for you guys. Early on, at least. Later on, you want to build these lovely stone houses, but only when you've got a crap load of stone to spare. Because they take iron and stone, and you don't have a lot of that early on. So build wooden houses early on. And only build a few. If you're short on children, if you have less than about 8 children, build another house. If you can afford to spare the resources and the manpower to build it. So everything's kind of small increments, at least for like the first 5 years. By the way, this is really important so you can see what season it is as well. That's really important because you know when you're going to need more food. Because to start with, you can put more men into gathering food and stuff for the winter. And little tricks like that. You can put more, like in the summer, you can put more men to gather resources or, you know, build or whatever else. And in the winter, just before the winter, you can get everyone in gathering, and you know, if you don't have that maxed out, you can put them in anyway. What else do we have? Of course, always have the map up if you want it. The map isn't hugely helpful. You can't see your settlement that well on the map, but you usually start off in the center, so at least you know where you are if you get lost. Like if you happen to go off the map, you can go back, like boom. You can find yourself. And that's pretty much it. I'm just going to go through the last of the options. Now this shows the limits, the resource limits on production. This basically shows what you have. This is, you can increase the priority with this tool. I never use this, and I don't think you guys will need to use it until you're more advanced in the game, and by then you'll know it all anyway. Paths is quite a useful tool. You basically click on the person, and you'll find out like kind of where they're pathing to and stuff. I mean, as you can see, it's not really working right now. Oh, there we go. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it's good to know where people are going. As you can see, you can work out pretty much where people are going. Like, people are going to be going here to your storage. By the way, when it gets full, build a new storage. That's pretty obvious. Pretty easy to make. You can find them here onto the storage markets and trade tab. Everything's pretty well labeled. You can build your, don't bother with roads early on in the game. Wait until your food supply is excellent, then build roads. Except if there's if you have a fishing dock nearby, maybe build a dirt road, because getting fish to your barn takes ages, so build a path or something if you can spare the builders. As you can see, I've got a nice stone road running from my quarry and my mine, so I get the supplies much faster to my stockpiles. Some people suggest building houses closer to the places of work. By all means do that if you find it helps you. I find it helps me to keep them all in one area, just because I like the way it looks, basically, to have like kind of a town. And also it keeps them out of the gatherers area, because every house will cover up trees, it will cover up resources, and all this kind of forest I'm using to get my resources. If I put houses in them, I'm going to get less resources, so it makes sense to have them all in one area for me. And what else do we have? Anything else? Final thoughts? Trading post I haven't built yet. It's kind of advanced stuff. You can figure that out when you get there. This is kind of a beginner's guide. Yep, I'm going to leave it off there, guys, pretty much. Blacksmith. Blacksmith. I almost forgot the blacksmith. Blacksmith's really important. When you start to run out of tools, you get to the last 10 tools, build a blacksmith. Get a blacksmith. Make sure you get enough iron. You can collect iron here. And now, you may have noticed rocks that you couldn't collect. Well, that's iron. So, make sure you go collect some of that. You'll notice it's going to be collected by the golden crosses. And get some iron in, build a blacksmith, get a blacksmith working there by going to your assign jobs to citizens and get a blacksmith. I have one running all the time, just because I got spare people. You won't have, so you'll need to swap people around. Like if you need tools, swap a guy to the blacksmith. From something else like builder. You can get builders down to 1 or even 0 if you're not building much. And you can put him into blacksmithing. And he'll build tools. You want to make sure you have about 30 tools in stock at the beginning of the game. And probably about 50 later on. Try not to run out of tools, because otherwise your people will walk around with broken tools and they won't be as effective. Anyway, I've been the Realist Reviewer. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful. If you're familiar with these games, all this kind of stuff will be common sense to you anyway. Your resource hubs, these are the hubs where your stuff goes to. You want to make sure that your food is close to that as possible, not too close. You want to make sure that your food supply, at least your food supply that's dependent on forest, has forest in the entire circle. And you want to make sure that your forest is maintained. And you want to make sure that farms are close to your village so that the food doesn't have much distance to travel. Especially important with the pasture that's near your village, so that they can just take the eggs and the chickens that they've killed when the population's maxed out. They'll start slaughtering them, that they don't have far to walk early on in the game, because you want to get food there as quick as possible, especially in the winter. Anyway, guys, hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you next time.